Two hats, welcome. First in the house, welcome, welcome. Followed by Mr. Ben Allmark, welcome. Good evening to you. Doing well. Hope you're doing well as well. um, yeah, thank you guys for showing up. I always start this off by saying thank you so much for taking the time to spend a little bit of your time with this show that we do every Sunday night, Sunday at Mike's. Whether you're going to watch this live or if you're going to watch this in the rerun, I want to let you know I do truly do appreciate you taking your time to do so. Yeah, guys. Another week is done and another one beginning. Uh, I myself had a very quiet week. Mickey in the house, watching live tonight. Thank you so much for showing up, Mickey. It's good to see you. Yeah, I've had a quiet week this week, which is good for me. Let me see here. Let me make my adjustments. Yeah, I like this. This is good. And actually, there's one more light here to turn on. Yeah, I like that better. Let's do that. There we go. Now we've got some light going here. Now we can see. I hope you guys are well. Frederick in the house. Welcome. Michael Watson in the house. Welcome. Welcome to all of you guys. Thank you so much for showing up. Now that we got the lights on, we can see better. Frederick Rogers in the house. Welcome. Mr. Rogers in the house. Thank you guys so much for everybody showing up. This is awesome. Uh, you know, uh, yeah. So this weekend, I took the first Asanoki album off of my content here on YouTube. As you know, to celebrate me hitting 1,000 subscribers, I put the Asanoki album up for free here on my YouTube channel to listen to. And I got a great response. As a matter of fact, it let me know which one should be the leading single on that song. I'm pretty good at writing songs, but I found out that I'm terrible at picking the lead single. So I did a little rearrangement there, and I put that up on Bandcamp. And the reason I did that is because I really do, those albums represent a turning point musically with me, and they really are. They should be listened to together, to tell you the truth, because prior to that, the albums that you'll find on iTunes, for example, or Spotify, will be under Mike McWilliams. And those albums, so these two, those four other albums that I'm not going to put on Bandcamp represent a time when I was just composing and just writing whatever came off the top of my head. Those albums are all over the place. Great tunes on them, but a little bit all over the place musically. Kind of like me when I'm doing these live streams, a little bit all over the place. And but the Asanoki album, which I started in Singapore, and no, the Asanoki one album, yeah, which I did in Singapore. I did that whole album in Singapore. Uh, really represented a turning point for me. It was me really going in the direction of just saying, heck, I want to do rock music. This is the direction I want to go. And I want to explore a lot of different genres of rock as well, and as well as my own, putting my own stamp on them as well. So I put that up this weekend on Bandcamp. So if you go to Bandcamp, and I took it off here on YouTube, so that was a limited time offer. But I do appreciate everybody who did take the time to listen to it for free. I didn't price it as a new album since it's been out for a while. I've only priced it for $5, about the cost of a cup of coffee, to be frank. So if you're into my tunes and you'd like to have that, you can download that, find that along with the Asanoki Ants in the Pantry follow-up album. Uh, Also, it can be found on Bandcamp, so check that out. I'm frozen up over here for some reason. Let me refresh and see what we've got. For some reason I froze up. Well, we're in a commercial now, so we won't know for a moment here. But I assume that I'm doing well out there. I see 11 of you watching and 5 likes. Let's try to hit that like button if you can remember. I want to get into the subject at hand, but I'm going to go in a kind of a roundabout way tonight. The title of tonight's live stream is How Can We Move Forward If We're Always Looking Back in Rock Music? And this thought came to me when I was taking that extremely long 9-hour train ride back and forth between Amsterdam and Frankfurt this last week. And it's a valid question, but I want to approach it. I always like to take something outside and bring it in because it brings context to sometimes how silly things are in the music market and sometimes how it's just really par for the course. This is really blinding. Let me turn that. Okay, that's better. This picture right here I'm going to show you so you can see that. That is Pikachu, a very popular character if you're familiar with that kind of thing. And this is Vincent van Gogh, and this is his self-portrait. And recently at the Van Gogh Museum, they were having an exhibition where they were featuring some of his famous artwork done with Pikachu. And this Pikachu picture, or that's a copy of this famous one that I'm sure a lot of you out there are familiar with, was selling for the sum. It was a nice size one, I imagine, about like that, poster almost, you could say. It was a limited thing. They were selling for 120 euros at the Van Gogh Museum in the gift shop. Well, that was the idea. There was such a craze and they became so popular. And by the way, the exhibition had been sold out since August of last year. And these particular posters were supposedly sold out in the gift shop in October. So they didn't have enough to go for the whole stretch of the thing. And why did that happen? Well, as it turns out, that staff who had been working there for 25 years, security guards, the people in European museums, there's a cloakroom. So when you come in, especially in the wintertime, it's very handy because you come in with your heavy coat on because it's cold outside. And you can go to the cloakroom, hand them your coat, they give you a ticket, and when you're done going around the museum, you can pick it up. Kind of old school, but I love it. The cloak people at the museum and a few others that work there were all in on this thing where they were taking the posters. The cloak guys were going up to people coming into the museum and saying, "Psst, how much would you be willing to pay for one of those posters?" Well, these things also ended up somehow on mark plots. And here you guys see where I'm going my tie-in tonight. What does this have to do with the music instrument industry and rock and roll and looking? I'm getting there. This is a good one. Mark plots, as you know, is the kind of Craigslist of the Netherlands that I will not touch with a 10-foot pole because I got ripped off on it big time. Provably, the guy sold me a body. It never got here, and that same body came up for sale after the 30-day period where he kept delaying the return on it. So I won't touch it. But of course, something as slimy as this, of course, would make its way onto mark plots for 1,800 euros. They were going for on that side. I remember this is a 120 euro poster, limited edition thing. Somehow it ended up being sold also on mark plots by the cloakroom staff, by just about everybody was on the take on this thing. Now, you would listening to this story, and it's a funny one. You would think to yourself, the first thing I thought to myself is, why would somebody, when I read that somebody who had been working there for 25 years was willing to throw everything away for for this, for this craze that was created over these posters. And not to mention most of the staff. They're going to be, everybody's going to get pulled into a room, and trust me, there's going to be a lot of long faces at the end of that conversation. Really, whether you were guilty or not. They may just sweep the whole house clean, which it sounds like they need to do, and start all over again. But that's just, you know, symptomatic of a bigger issue, which is just FOMO, fear of missing out, and greed on the part of those who could get their hands on the product, and whether directly or indirectly. And this FOMO, the reason the story I found really interesting is to see a good example of this kind of FOMO outside of where I normally study it. And as you guys who are probably watching this live stream on this kind of channel are probably familiar with the kind of FOMO that we get, especially during NAMM season. No, I'm not saying that the manufacturers of these goods that we're interested in, or the staff at the places that distribute them, are doing that kind of highway robbery. No, the highway robbery already occurred. It was baked in the pie. When you walked in the door and bought it, trust me, they didn't need to do that. They already got you in a way. And a lot of people are finding that out, especially when they go to resell it and they find out, hey, maybe this poster is not worth the $1,800 I paid for it. Maybe I had FOMO going in on this particular guitar. It's not worth the $1,800 I paid for it. See where I'm tying this together? It's that FOMO factor is the thing that ties these two stories together, really. Because there wouldn't have been any need for the 25-year-old veteran of the Van Gogh Museum to throw, they didn't say his or her, but to throw their career away. They're not getting that gold watch now. I hope they bought their own Cartier with their proceeds from that, which, by the way, they're going to have to give them back. Uh, I hope it was worth it. And I read that, and then I read an article about, I'm sorry, not an article, I read online on one of the guitar forums that I peruse from time to time, or they were discussing the art. There's no artwork on the back of that Berserker series, that came out there with Epiphone, those customs. This would be the Les Paul custom that does not have the artwork on the back of it. And there were people who were talking about, my gosh, the price of this is astronomical. Some people saying, hey, you know what? Sorry I bought the first few inside of that run, I believe of six. And they really kind of summed it up with one guy saying, hey, I've noticed that even on the earlier part of this series, some of those guitars are getting blown out at such and such music store for this price, which was, I looked at the price and they always post the ad on this forum to back up their claims. And I said, holy crap, what a significant discount. And the guy said, yeah, one of the guys who owned the guitar, he says, yeah, I'm sorry that I rushed in and bought it at the time, but I wanted to be one of the first guys to have it. And there's the FOMO. Now he's lamenting the fact that they can be had brand new at some store right now is blowing them out. I believe in the UK. Don't quote me on that. Um, but the fact that he bought it new at the time at its peak of its price, and now he wants to buy another one that seems to be with some refinements to it, even that first one didn't have, which is a very interesting thing. Not including the artwork not being on the back of it, the headstock design, for example, most importantly, being a true Gibson custom design, and but it was that FOMO. It was the fear of missing out that drove that up, that caused that situation in both of these cases. Now, one has to do with a stupid Pikachu Van Gogh poster that somehow FOMO caused it to get hyped up in the market. Fortunately, with us, there's map pricing, so we don't. But we saw in the case of that Bad Monkey pedal. Let's go back to that one again. Here's a pedal that nobody knew about, and Josh over at JHS Pedals said, "Hey, you know what? This thing sounds pretty good if you do this, this, and this." And everybody said, "Hey, I got to get one of those." And those who had it said, "Well, you know what? You're going to pay a pretty penny for it now." I bought it for dirt cheap, or found it, at a garage sale. You can have it for $300, and FOMO, and it drove up, and people bought them at that price. Now that FOMO has dropped off significantly, and they can be found at still an inflated price from where they were. If they're $35, I believe you could have them for now around $85. They've settled at 85, $95. FOMO. FOMO Pikachu, FOMO with Bad Monkeys. It's one of those things, like I said, I came up with tonight's topics because I was on that train ride this week. Mickey Newman. I did. I sold all my Bad Monkeys for ridiculous money. Bless you, sir. I got no problems with that one because if somebody wanted to, but yeah, I remember you mentioning that before. If somebody wanted to spend that price, hey, albeit from you, but to say no, you know what, guy? No, 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 I'm not going to do this. No, you sell it. And so FOMO. And FOMO creates these situations. Now, in certainly in Mickey's case, he was on the right side of that FOMO trade. I don't know, again, if that 25, the hat check girl and the security guard. Now, I was reading that, I had this vision of like the hat check girl and the security guard were dating each other, and this was going to be their big score. They were going to rob the museum and make off to Nice with the proceeds to start a happy life. But unfortunately, they got caught. Yeah, you could make a whole movie around that story. It's just ridiculous, but it's a FOMO story. And when it really boils down to the gist of it, it's a FOMO story. And we have that in our industry, no doubt. We experience it quite a lot. Again, like I said, with us being in NAM season, and we're getting that get one, buy one, get one, buy one. If you guys know that South Park reference, Pokemon. Hey, that's kind of like this Pikachu thing, actually. I believe actually it's a rip on that. That's funny. But you are again being deluged with people's NAM reports, and then of course the gear. The next thing that's going to happen is Fender and Marshall and all the others. They're going to start putting out their self-produced videos on their new stuff. It happens twice a year. It's like clockwork. And that's when everybody says, "Hey, have you seen the new this? Have you seen the new that? What do you think about the new this and the new that?" And and I started thinking to myself, the title of tonight's live stream. I started thinking to myself, how can we move forward if we're always looking back in rock? Because I look at a lot of this stuff, and yeah, there are some innovations in there, but that would represent a small amount of it. The most of it is, again, like I said, a riff of a riff, and we're looking back. We're looking back in our music instruments. I mean, my gosh, the 20,000 Les Paul with its $1,000 pickups, which I told you, if you spent $20,000 for that Les Paul, there's no way in God's green earth that you would cut the leads and put in those $1,000 pickups, which, by the way, don't come with the $20,000 Les Paul. You know, interesting. You know, you get inundated with this stuff. James in the house. Welcome, sir. Welcome to the party. It is not a party without you being here, sir. Thank you so much for showing up. Again, just take a minute here to thank all of you guys for taking the time to show up this evening. Really love it every evening to have you guys. I have such a beautiful community supporting me and listen to my rants. But we're inundated, and just to get to the gist of this, we're inundated with products that, for the most part, in my opinion, even with the Strat, I mean, you got Super Strats, you got Strats, you got SS Strats, you got SSH Strats, you got HSS Strats. It all like this one here behind me, and it's all riffs upon riffs and slight deviations, and a lot of it's looking back. No, that's okay. You don't hear the violin player saying, "Hey, gee, I wish they would come up with an eight-string violin." I hope that nobody ordered one of those. So all is not really so dire, but but it's just part of this loop that we're stuck in. Let me give you another example. You know, where how can we move forward if we're looking back? I always talk about the famous rock bands. I talk about the Stones, and I talk about Clarence Clearwater Revival. Sometimes I talk about you know Motley Crue, and these are all classic bands from 60s, 70s, and 80s period, and that we love. Well, here's the funny thing: all the bands that I just mentioned are still on tour. Seriously, look it up. Whether it's just that one guy who's still alive, left up there trying to play, go through a set, or which is most of them. No, that's most of them actually, or it's just, a group like Motley Crue, who I seem to recall signed an agreement that a couple of years back that they weren't going to go on tour anymore. This was it. We're done. We're finished. And yet somehow they're back again. And and people are buying tickets and they're doing this, and I understand, looking back and nostalgiaism and all that. But even in that regard, with that money that people are spending with these bands, that some of them really need to retire. They really, really do. They really do. They're getting past long in the tooth. Stale is the word, and embarrassing to look at sometimes. Man, Vince Neil, you know, it's like, wow, it's hard to look at him perform. I've seen Motley Crue on 4 farewell tours. We'll get ready for 4 more, with or without Mick Mars. Okay, seriously. Vince Neil is hard to look at performing live. I'd be honest with you. I'm like, wow, he has let himself go, and you know that's just what it is. But there comes a point where it's just getting kind of old, and we're finding ourselves, no more. I'm good. Yeah, you know, I like watching them in their heyday. You know, a lot of their stuff back from the 80s and early 90s, you can find it on YouTube. You're on YouTube. And you can watch the full, the full set. And you can say, okay, that was something, man. I dug that. But I can't watch the stuff now. I can't. It's because it's just, it's cringy in some cases. Especially now that Mick Mars isn't there, because without his guitar playing, which was I've told you my admiration for him, I'm really not interested now. So there's that. But again, it's looking back. It's looking back. It's taking this money that could be spent on, because you can't tell me that there aren't. Somebody wrote in the comment section, and I do read the comment section of these live streams and my regular stuff always. I read every comment, try to answer when I can, at least give you a thumbs up or heart and let you know that I read it and saw it. But one guy said, "Yeah, I'm like rock on, save rock and roll." And I'm like, "Well, how can I was on the train when I read that comment. I said, "Well, how can we save rock and roll? We're always looking back. We're looking at our back with a lot of our instruments." And I'm not saying that we need, the Space Age 2000. We went through that phase in the 80s where we really slid over to electronica, and it had a great effect. A lot of great music came from that, but it just went hard. I mean, there's got to be a middle there somewhere. And with rock music, okay, we can still plug a Les Paul into a Marshall. Great, it's looking back, but it is what it is. It's proven itself. But I'd like to see a brand new band with brand new songs um, come out and do that, as opposed to the you know the Rolling Stones. We used to hang out with Moses tour. You know, I just I you know I would dig that. I would much rather like hearing reading about that in Premier Guitar Magazine. I would love to read about that stuff, but I don't see that. A lot of the articles in Premier, there's another in the media. In music media, we're looking back. A lot of the articles are talking about, oh, Noel Redding said this. Well, Noel Redding played bass for Jimi Hendrix, all right. And, Tom Petty did this, and, God bless Tom, but that was a while back, and Tom has passed on. That kind of genre. Of course, Randy Rhoads, the great 10 great facts you didn't know about Randy Rhoads. I could go on and on. And sure, they have new guys that come in, but even in those articles, there seems to be a way that the reviewer or the interviewer is saying, "Well, what did you think about Noel Redding's bass playing?" Kind of leading, the artists, and sometimes the artists themselves, which I would, of course, because I told you, rock is my love. But it's a lot of the articles are looking back on stuff. They're looking back. So we've got the music industry in terms of its production looking back of instruments, just riffs upon riffs. We talked about the media just now. We talked about three things there, and it's just all of those things separately. Some of them in themselves, like I said, are okay, but all of them cumulatively lead us to having a mindset of always looking back. Now, the one last one that I didn't mention, Ben Allmark. I love that Nine Inch Nails, Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park vibe with the guitars and a bit of synth, whatever you want to call it. I know it's not new, but it was cool. Yeah, I agree with that. On the album that I just put up on Bandcamp, the first Asanoki album, the first song, Perfectly Lucky, I was blending analog synth in with guitars. I was trying to get that, I was thinking about that. You know, even though it's a one man band, I often think about Trent Reznor and the fact that Nine Inch Nails is a one man band kind of thing too. It's the same thing as Asanoki. It kind of was always an inspiration of mine. So funny you should mention that. Mickey Newman, best live band for me I went to see in 2023 was Muse. Okay. And they've been going 30 years. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that it's not good. These guys are seasoned veterans. I mean, are we not entertained? Yes, we were entertained, and we are, but it's all long in the tooth stuff. You know, I love The Cure, but it vocally and everything there, it's not there anymore because of age, and it's not out of a lack of those guys not having the ability to pull it off to perform. They've been doing it for 40 years, but there comes a point where you're not singing the same way you sang when you were 25 years old, and that becomes very apparent, in a lot of cases. And so, again, that's just looking back. But the one area that I didn't hit on, I talked about live, I talked about the instruments, I talked about the media. But what about the music itself? That is the one area where you're saying to yourself, "Well, wait a minute, Mike. I love this argument that you're building here. You got three legs to that stool. You're putting up your fourth here, but that fourth one, I'm going to tell you, uh, there is very little guitar-oriented music these days in the top 10, or even the top 20, or even the top 30, or damn well even the top 50, I would say." So you can't really say that we're looking back in that regard. Well, actually, a lot of the old catalogs of stuff, from the Beatles on to everybody that you can mention from up through the 90s, up to maybe the 2000s, early 2000s, those catalogs are being played, downloaded more than the modern stuff. There are, if you look at classic albums, like the Eagles' Hotel California, that's a big downloader, beating out a lot of stuff by Drake, a lot of these big so-called rap stars, for sure, without any question. So even there, folks are looking back because they're not finding any. I submit that they're not finding anything there new that is as eloquently done as the stuff that was done before. Eloquently done in a myriad of ways, too, with a lot of different flavors, and that you don't have today. If you look at music as colors, man, that stuff back in the day wasn't just a rainbow, it was a spectrum of music. Whereas today it's very monochrono, you know, monochromatic. It's just it's just bland. Without it's just the same. Tommy Mac 16 in the house. Good evening. Welcome. Thank you, man, for showing up. I want to thank you guys in the community that support me every Sunday and every Wednesday during these live streams. Boy, it means a lot to me, guys. It really does. Um, yeah. So if you look at the streaming sales, downloads, and things like that, it's older stuff, guys. It's older stuff. And again, there's a reason behind that, but essentially it still supports the fact that people are looking back in that regard because they're not being satisfied with what we're being presented with now. Because the people who present these things are very monolithic themselves. And they're not the musicians that a lot of the music guys back in the day used to be, you know, or having a very strong tie to music, having an understanding to even produce it. We talked about John Hammond last week, last live show, and John Hammond fits that bill perfectly. That's why his success chart. He's everybody in 20th century at some point or another. He worked with, produced, you know, something. Um, Mickey Newman says, "Love this 1970s for the absolute mixed palette of music." Yeah, like I said, it was a spectrum of music. It wasn't a rainbow, man. It was like one of those things that you used to turn and all the color kaleidoscope. You know, kaleidoscope of colors, man. And musically, and I am so blessed to be able to have come through that. I would hate it would for me if I knew what I know and then had to do it all over again and come up with this stuff. You know, I just I wouldn't be happy. And there's some kids out there who aren't. They're digging into their parents' records or their aunt or uncle. They go to their house and say, "Hey, what's that you're listening to?" And they start getting to things that way. I discovered them in 1995. I went to see Weezer this year, and I discovered them in 1995. Yeah, I know Weezer. Weezer was a big MTV band. Like it was like every week it was some, every day it was some Weezers at one, you know, especially one summer. Maybe it was like summer 94, 95, something like that. And so, you know, how can we really look forward in rock if we were looking back in so many ways? And I don't have an answer for that. I mean, like I said, I'd like to see more young people stepping forward. Michael Watson's in the house. I grew up in the 1970s, best time of my life. Yeah, I was 10 in 1977, 13 in 1980. So, do I remember the summer of 77? Absolutely. I remember it very clearly. I remember summer 76 even better because I went to Magic Mountain for the first time. and a lot, and Kiss was came on with that TV show on ABC. I just, you know, it was a great time to be a kid too. You know, the 70s. And the 80s got a little bleaker, but looking back on them musically in the 80s and the 90s, that was a great time for music. It was a great time for music. Great time for music. Mickey Newman, I like the 70s music to be the soundtrack of my life. Well, you live through it enough. A lot of those songs will come to you. You'll discover something and it will. Um, I like the song "The Best of My Love" by the Eagles, man. You know, or "Desperado." I used to perform "Desperado." At that time in my life, I was playing piano and singing in piano bars in Japan. I would play "Desperado" sometimes because I could feel it. The lyrics to that song, you know. You've been out riding fences for far too long. You know, make a choice, Michael. Do what are you gonna do? And they do become the soundtrack to your life. I agree. But again, you know, this is a weird thing. This would be like the people in the 70s, young kids, saying, I don't want to listen to, you know, the rock music that's coming out now. I want to go back and listen to the stuff that was done in the 50s. It was a lot better. That didn't happen. That's not what happened. The people who grew up, like my parents who knew that music, they continued to listen to it to some extent. But that generation, they had rock music. Whereas this generation, a lot of young people are saying they're doing the equivalent of that. They're saying even further than that. They're like, me like go back to the 30s and 40s, it's equivalent. So there's that. Why is that? The Eagles are on their final tour. Yeah, their final tour. I mean, there's not even any, members. If you brought back, you know, anyway, it'll never happen. The Eagles is no longer the Eagles anymore. When it's the Don Henley show, and there's that, which it kind of always was. Ben Allmark, Mickey will play "Sunshine of Your Love" for the intro of your life music. You are the sunshine of my. That'd be great. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. I like that one. Um, yeah, it's funny. Do I have an answer to tonight's question that I posed? I put a question mark at the end because I submitted to you too. Is there a solution to this? When you look at that, all those different things that keep us in this infantilism as far as any kind of moving forward rock music, I don't know. It's a tough one when you're being influenced by in so many ways. Now, like I said, not all of them are bad in themselves, but cumulatively, we're looking back in rock instead of looking forward. I guarantee you, back in the '60s, cats weren't looking back over their shoulder. They were looking ahead who was coming up next because they knew the next guy was gonna smoke them. Think of all the guitar players who thought that they were hot shit, and then Eddie Van Halen hit the scene. They had to completely rethink themselves. Like, okay, maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was. Whereas now we're comparing backwards. Well, is he as good as a player as Hendrix? You know, seriously. It was, we crossed the Rubicon on that, but we're in the reverse mirror land, bizarro land, we're in reverse land with these concepts, and it's put us in this position where it's difficult to think about moving forward, and I myself. I'm sorry, I'm checking my notes here because I know I've forgotten something. It's a good thing I write everything down. Yeah, that's the next thing. You know, I think the solution there really comes about by letting things go in a way that we it's I think simplicity is what created the situations that created that music. I think getting back to simplicity again is what will lead us forward to be able to stop looking back and start looking forward. What do I mean by simplicity and letting things go? Um, you know, I have these two records that I put up this week that are now up on Bandcamp. Asanoki 1, we'll call it Asanoki 2, Ants in the Pantry. And of course, I would like to sell it. I would like to see more people. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to encourage you to buy it always because it's product that I believe in. I say buy them both. They're bookends. You will love them both. But I didn't do this with any expectation of riches from them at all. Quite to the contrary. I did it with the eye of saying, hey, if I check out of this world tomorrow, somebody can listen to these records and say, hey, I got a pretty good feel for who this guy was, A. And B, hey, he left something behind. He wasn't just a paper pusher. He actually left something behind, an art form that people can dig. Something for everybody, I always say. And that's always been, of course, when I was doing paid gigs, I expected to get paid and I had to fight and I had to be fought to get paid. And, but that was not it was always secondary. The first thing always was the music. And I think if we give up on these ambitions, and I'm talking to the younger people, under 30, who are trying to do this, that listen to this. If you give up on your ambitions of the fame thing, and I think if you've been listening to enough of the live streams that I've done, I've hit upon the fact that maybe the music business is a twisted bastard. You might not want to go to bed with it. It may not be good for your health. Weezer were great in the '90s. Yeah, they were great. That's why I said they were promoted the heck out of. You know, but to you, back to young people, it's you know, it's about creating the best art that you can. So the simplicity of that, and if that's done with one beat up acoustic guitar and a cassette recorder and not even a microphone, just whatever, all the way up to a sophisticated rig, regardless of how the medium that you record it to, um, approaching it, backing away from how many TikTok views is this going to get me. This take has to be perfect because I'm going to put it up on Instagram. Um, the song has to be this type because this is what's popular right now. And if I want to get signed, I have to do this. You know, don't worry about chasing that because, quite frankly, wow, somebody just bought. I just got cha-ching from Bandcamp. I don't know if it's somebody out there watching right now. I want to thank you. Just bought the first Asanoki album. You're gonna love that one. That's my favorite one. That is my favorite album that I put together. I'll be frank with you. I really I put my ass in that one. I really did. I don't know who did. Mickey, man, thank you, Mickey. God bless you. Thank you so much. For you're really gonna like that album. Perfectly Lucky is a great track. Down the Rabbit Hole on that album is a track that is in 3/4 time and then changes to 4/4 times. A lot of sophisticated things I was doing in that, but again, it was for the artwork, and I love the way it came out. It was I wanted to do an homage to '60s kind of things. And that was the idea. But that album is a great one. Thank you, Mickey. Tommy Mac 16. Mike, do you think the 2020 guitar boom will lead to a new fertile landscape of music from the young generation? Perhaps now teenagers? No. Um, um, Only if because that money went to the parents. I mean, there were some young folks who got that money, but that money mostly went to parents and parents who had small businesses, things of that nature that caused that boom. Again, I told you it was free money from the governments that created that boom. It was an artificial, one of a kind, and unless they do it again, it won't happen again. I hope they don't have it happen again because if it does, the financial implications of that are just too much to consider. They already are. But I digress. No, I think that if the parents hand those instruments down to their children and those children take an interest in it because dad, bought this and then it just sat in the closet. Well, let me now that I'm 6 and it's been sitting in the closet since 2020 and I'm now 10, so it's 2030. You see what I'm going? And I think that's what you were asking. That's how that could happen because by the time 2040 hits, that kid is 26 years old and he's established. If he was going to be it by that's his moment. That's when we'll know. And so it takes time. Were the seeds planted there? Yeah, there were some seeds planted there. Is to answer your question. Yes, I do agree in that way. Do I think it's going to have any immediate changes? No, I don't. Like I said, we're talking about 10, 15 plus years out on that one. Are the seeds there? Yeah. It takes time. Um, but just like those trees that were planted in Japan after the war that created the Japanese guitar boom later in the '70s, once the seeds are from just are planted, good things can come. Margie Z's in the house. Thank you so much for showing up, Margie Z. Please spell the name of the album. The album is Asanoki, A Asa, Asanoki. Asanoki. It's on Bandcamp. It's two albums now. There's the first Asanoki 1 album, and then there's Asanoki Ants in the Pantry. Asanoki is the name of my Japanese band. But much like one of my heroes, Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails, I decided to do the whole thing and just continue to call it under the name of the band, but to do all the work myself. Mickey Newman, I just thought about it. I have no one to leave my guitars to. Yes, you do. You do. There are children's charities that would love to have them. That you've got ample time, God willing, a lot of time, God willing, to investigate and find one that you find suitable and just draw it up and say, hey, when I go, whatever happens, these guitars go to these kids. Thanks. I would check it out on Bandcamp, Margie. Margie, I thank bless you for checking it out. You will not be sorry. Again, those two albums together are the best of my love. If I can steal a song from the Eagle, a title from the Eagles. And again, if you listen to that, as I was saying, if you listen to that music, you'll know me. It's me. I'm there in the lyrics. How deep, how shallow, how sane, how insane. My viewpoints of things. It's all there. It's a testimony to myself in a way. And that's the other reason I did it, to leave something of myself behind, and in that format through music. And so, if you take that approach as a young person looking at it like that, and don't worry about how many hits you're gonna. I mean, look at my channel. I think that I have a decent YouTube channel. And I think that the content that I bring you is not uninteresting. Some of my top videos are over 150,000 views. But I am still at the low 2000s in terms of my subscriber base. Now, I don't worry about that because I didn't do this for that. I'd like to see more people, not because of trying to get more advertising revenue, which it really won't make that big of a difference. No, it's to reach a bigger audience with what I'm trying to say. That's the thing. That's my. I want more people to hear what I have to say. And I want to build a bigger community because the one that I have is so wonderful. If the one I have at 2,000 is wonderful, I wonder what's going to be at 4 or 5,000. And that's always been kind of my viewpoint when it comes to all of my artwork, I kind of realized. Not looking back so much so. I'm building upon something that was there, certainly. But I'm looking forward, but not in the way that, not for riches, because riches will come and go. There's been musicians who, have made millions of dollars and now they're pushing a car down on Skid Row. And that's a fact. It always has been. No, the riches aren't where it's at. That Skid Row artist, whether they get off Skid Row or their demise ends up there, at the end of the day, somebody will say, hey, I have this record by such and such that I like. And we'll remember the better part, the better aspects, or sometimes the worst if you're into thrash metal. I'm just kidding, but yeah. So the answer, in my opinion, my answer to how can we move forward if we're always looking back in rock, is to just let go. Let go of the aspirations. A lot of those bands they did because they dug the music. They weren't looking to become famous. The fame was created around them as an illusion to fool the populace into different messages that were then used by these artists to be promoted. We talked about that with the Laurel Canyon crowd. And but the original impetus there always is a guy or a band or a woman and her group in a room with some instruments trying to come up with something. You can't get past that. There could be all kinds of machinations going on with how that event happened, but you're not going to get away with the creation of the music. There is where the truth lies. And we know that a lot of nefarious things were happening and to create the Laurel Canyon situation. But again, we cannot take away from the music that was created. And so the simplicity of that, it wasn't the fame, it was the music. The fame again was built around it in order to, but the music itself. Mickey Newman, book tickets today for the UK Guitar Show in March. Could be very interesting to see where the manufacturers think the market is going. Yeah, I will be going to Vinendal this March. It's every September and every March that Vinendal here in the Netherlands occurs, the vintage guitar instrument show. I'm looking to get some stuff in from Japan that I can take down there with me. So yeah. I'd like to hear what a lot of guys have to say down there as well. They're starting to get to know me. So there's some guys I can walk up to and have that kind of deeper conversation with. So there is that. Very interesting times. I'm drinking, interesting enough, guys, you're not going to believe this, but I'm drinking chocolate milk tonight. Why? I don't know how this happened. But I felt the need I just suddenly said, I haven't had a glass of chocolate milk in a long time. Let me make some for the live stream. I'm going to have a live stream in chocolate milk. The only thing I couldn't have is a straw. Yeah, you guys would have clowned me on that one. So I had to let that thought go. But I sure did have my chocolate milk tonight. So I always ask what you guys drinking out there, morning, afternoon, evening. Some are having coffee, some are having scotch. Some of us are having chocolate milk. And it was good too. When I was in elementary school in the 70s, you paid 10 cents for a little carton of either fresh milk or chocolate milk. And boy, this one tasted just like that one that I had back in the day. Eva Cassidy didn't chase fame and was noticed only after she died way too young, Margie Z shares. Yes, there's that too. Van Gogh, speaking of him, the story with Vincent Van Gogh. He shot himself, and he died in an insane asylum, or in and out of insane asylums, and in poverty. It isn't until now that his paintings started selling for millions of dollars. Now, would that millions of dollars made him any different of a man? Would his outcome have ended up being different if they had recognized him while he was alive? I point to you to a Mr. Kanye West to answer that question. I have to look into local guitar shows. Could be interesting. Yes. Guys, I'll be frank with you. A little secret. If you got cash money and you're really seriously about thinking about buying guitars or a guitar, go to a local show. Somebody there will make you the deal of your lifetime. And because it's a show and you can hold it again, you get to try maybe several if you're lucky. But you get to hold in your hands, you get to find the one that bonds with you, and you can get a great deal. The best deals that I've ever got, and I'm convinced. And there's a lot of guys here who have shops, but they go to the guitar expo here at Vinendal, and their price comes down, especially when you got cash. So just something you might want to look into if you have a local one, and it's always fun to go to. Beats the car show in Kenosha. So it might be something that you want to check out. Um, but anyway, so whether it's Pokemon cards or Pokemon posters or Pikachu posters, sorry, or guitars or whatever, there's FOMO. We talked about that. We tie that into how, because of FOMO, that's kind of stagnated the music instrument market in some ways. Uh, and we talked about all the other aspects that have us looking back more than looking forward. And again, it's up to us as individual artists to go forward. Now, this YouTube platform is a way for me to promote my art and get it known out there. I don't do Instagram. I don't do TikTok. No way. And I won't for a lot of reasons. I'm sure some of you can guess what they are, but I find this sufficient. And if you build it, they shall come. I always believe that is a true statement. And this channel is a testimony to that. So this is the way I'll get my music in through you guys, because one of you will buy my album, and you will go to a relative and you will say, "Hey, this guy named Mike McWilliams on YouTube. He's got this record. I thought this song was good. Take a listen to it," and it goes from there. And that's the best way, man. It's pure, you know, and it makes me feel good. My 74 Les Paul Custom came from the guitar show here in the UK 25 years ago. Yeah, that's the thing, man. I see cats there and they're buying 56 Les Paul specials. Probably the worst classic guitar that you can invest money in, but they're buying those and they're getting good deals on it. I told you. You can get a made in Mexico Strat there, you're a good selection of colors for about 450 euros, about $500 cash money. And these are some of the older ones, the 90 ones, so these are really good ones. You're a class act, Mr. Mike. Well, I appreciate it, James. I don't know about me sometimes. I do wonder. But I appreciate you saying so. I just I don't want to do it. I don't want to promote in that way. And but you know, you guys will hear about it. I'm going to promote it. I'm going to say, hey, I've got this album. I've these albums now on Bandcamp, and I'd like you to take a look at it. And I'm happy with that. But I'd like to see, and I know a lot of young artists because I go through Bandcamp and I look at all the other artists and I listen to their music because I would like for them to do the same with me. And I am encouraged. I think that there's something there as well. Boy, it's getting late. My tongue is getting tied. um, I think there's something there as well when I look at some of the artists that are on Bandcamp and I listen to some of the music there under the rock category. Some of it, I'm not quite too sure if you really classify as rock, but hey, it's an effort there at least. So we'll put it in the checkbox next to it for being all right. But these are the ways that we can look forward is to stop looking for the materialistic, stop looking for the views, the looks, the likes, and things like that. The likes are the fact that somebody got the record. That's an instant like. That was enough of a like back then. That was enough of a like back for the record industries before. Now, why is it that if you don't have enough likes, they're not interested in signing you? Gee, what's going on there? They got their head up their butts, is what it is. But somebody bought your record and they suggested it to somebody and somebody bought it from there. And again, whether that's 10 people or if that's 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 people, either way, it's not based upon some social recognition. It's really down to just digging the music, the simplicity of getting it, letting go of aspirations of being famous, and do it for Van Gogh. Like I said, he didn't do that. Or he had to do that. It was in him. He had to paint. God, I understand that. Ooh, stop the music, girl. Whenever we touch Babyface wrote in one of his songs, and I understood what he was saying in that lyric too. Because in his mind, it's always going. When you dialed into that radio station as a composer, in your head, whether you want it or not, it goes. I'm in the shower just the other day. I've said I don't want to do recording anymore, but an idea comes into my head. Where does it come from? I don't know. But hey, and then what if I put this and I start arranging it in my head? I'm like, whoa, whoa, what are we doing here? I thought we weren't doing this anymore. Well, you really can't. So you do it because you have to, when you're at that kind of level. I know it because I experience it. I've got 6 albums to prove it. And boy, when they come, they come, they spill out. This last one was the one that took the longest, but that's just because I moved from Singapore to here and all the stuff in between that I had to do. That was auxiliary to that. And waiting for Jock to have the time to mix it, but I ended up, or to master it, but I ended up having to do that myself in the end too as well. So, again, guys, you do it out of love and you don't have no expectations for it. And so, therefore, take that as being maybe one way of looking forward is we're going to do this as a young person. I'm going to do this because I love doing it. And this is what I hear in my head and this is what I want to do. And I don't care if it's what's the top 10 right now. I don't care if it's not rap music, which is failing anyway. I don't care, about TikTok or Instagram. This is what's in my head. I want to put this out, and I'm going to find ways to get it out to people and hope that they like it. And they will. If it's good, they will. Again, like I said, Cream rises to the top. That's what Prince was saying. That song, Cream. Cream rises to the top, There's just no getting around that. And if it's there, it will be recognized. Unfortunately, in the case of the person that was shared with us here by Margie, Eva Cassidy, that occurred after they passed away. You would hope that somehow that would occur while you're still among us, but it may not. But it's okay. We know who Eva Cassidy is now because she left something behind, as opposed to she hadn't. And again, gets to my first point. All right, so there is that. Is there anything else out there, folks, that you'd like to talk about or ask me? I will open up the phone lines. Please be sure to turn your radio down in the background so we don't get an echo. If there's anything you guys want to shoot by me before we wrap this up this evening, I am open to it right now. I myself, I am getting itchy for that parts caster that I gave to Fern. There's there's something with his supplier where it's taking a moment for him to finish it. But I am itchy to get that guitar. I'm just like anybody else. I have gas too. But again, I try to minimize the impact on my wallet as much as possible. But I'm gassing for that Strat because when I went down to see him last week, it was just beautiful. It's I can't wait to share with you guys how it turned out. So it's really great. So I'm gassing for that. I'm going to contact him tomorrow and see where we're at with that. Also, I actually filmed regular content for my channel. I know I've been promising it for a couple of weeks now, but I actually have a regular video that I filmed today talking about the Harley Benton JB75 VT series bass that I own. And I went through it and gave my impressions of having it for 3 years now. And I think you'll enjoy that. So I'm in the process of editing that too. As soon as I hang up the phone here, I'm going to finish up editing that. I'm not going to put it out tomorrow because it's too soon after this one. Tuesday or Friday would be the slot that would be better to put that content up. So it doesn't draw too much away from this that I'm doing here tonight. But that will be coming out this week for sure. Spoiler on that one, as you guys know, I think it's awesome. So look forward to that. I'm going to do some sound comparisons where I have the Fender bass that I had, and I had this one, and I'll play them so you can hear that sonically, different tunes, but sonically, they're just really there. As a matter of fact, I kind of like the sound of the Harley Benton bass a little bit more than the Fender. It has a little bit more growl to it, actually. When I was listening to the sound samples, I was like, wow. So a good instrument, so I will be reviewing that, telling you that exactly, that I enjoyed it. All right, if there's no questions, if there's nothing else out there, I will call this quits because I do have to edit that video. And I want to thank you guys so much for taking the time to show up. I know these are getting a little shorter. I usually do an hour and a half on Sundays, but since I'm doing Wednesday's show, about an hour, 15 hour, 20 minutes should be a good balance. So we'll do it that way. And that way I don't want to bore you guys too much. And anyway, I ran out of chocolate milk, so I don't want to talk anymore. That was the fuel for tonight's discussion. My Hershey, my Nestle's Quick. It wasn't even that because they don't have that over here. It was my attempt at trying to recreate that. But anyway, thank you guys for supporting this channel. All you regular guys who always show up, my community, my peoples, as we say. Thank you so much for doing again that for me tonight. I hope I delivered something very interesting to you guys. If you're going to watch this on the rerun, I'd like to hear your comments down in the comments section. Again, I do read those, and some of those become the basis of shows going forward, like this one tonight came from the comment section. Me responding to that in a long format here tonight. So please do that. Until next one, everybody, please take care. Please have a safe week. I will see you this Wednesday night with another subject that I think you will find interesting. Take a look on Bandcamp if you haven't for the Asanoki 1 album. Also, the Asanoki 2 album, Ants in the Pantry, is there as well. Thank you so much for supporting this channel, and you guys take care. Bye-bye.